Maybe it's just because I never followed the news much until recently, but I have never heard of Elizabeth Holmes before today. Which is crazy because she was once the youngest female billionaire in the US. And on Thursday, so in 4 days from now, she will begin an 11-year sentence in a federal prison. So let's start from the beginning. Elizabeth Holmes comes from rich parents, to say the least. Her father was once a vice president at an energy company, and her mother was a political staffer in the Senate. This obviously provided some privilege for Elizabeth. After graduating from a luxurious K-12 school, she attended Stanford for a year. Now, this is when things kind of start off. So in 2003, at just 19 years old, she started her own company named Theranos, which sounds like the name of a Greek god in a Marvel movie. So Elizabeth labeled Theranos as a breakthrough company in health discoveries. For the next 12 years, the company would raise $700 million from American investors, and it would be valued at over $10 billion at its peak. And this was mostly due to the company's claims that it had created a breakthrough in blood testing kits. The company claimed that these kits only required an extremely small amount of blood and it could give results at an extremely rapid pace. These claims by Elizabeth about her company were extremely impressive, which is what led investors to go all in on Theranos over a 12-year span. And this is what led Elizabeth to hold the title as the youngest female billionaire in the United States at the time. But the year 2015 was the beginning of the downfall of Elizabeth and her company. A team of medical research professors and investigative journalists published findings which accused Elizabeth and her company of making false claims about their testing kits. Specifically, the crazy claims that the company's blood testing kits could provide results at a rapid pace with an extremely small amount of blood. This is what this team was saying was completely false. This led to a string of legal and personal accusations about Elizabeth and her company. In 2016, after just a year, Elizabeth's net worth had sunk from $4.5 billion at her peak to zero. In 2018, not only was her company dissolved, but she was indicted by a federal grand jury for misleading investors, otherwise known as fraud. It took 4 long years of legal battles in the judicial system, but in January of 22, she was convicted of fraud. And in November of 22, she was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. So over the last 6 months, she and her husband have both pleaded in appeals to judges that she not be sentenced to prison. The husband even recently begged a judge not to separate her from their new 1-year-old son. But unfortunately for Elizabeth and her family, these pleas were in vain. So on this Thursday, so just 4 days from now, Elizabeth, once the youngest female billionaire, will enter the federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas, where she is expected to serve until the year 2034. While at her company's peak, she wore black turtlenecks inspired by her idol Steve Jobs. She will now wear green and white standard prison attire. If there is anything to learn from this sad story, it is that nobody is above the law, including quote-unquote self-made billionaires. If you commit any crime, even if it be white-collar crime, you have to know that you do run the risk of ruining not only your career, but your life. For Elizabeth Holmes, she learned that the hard way.